You're staring at your phone right now, debating whether to text her, wondering what to say, how to say it, when to send it. Here's the truth. Your silence is more powerful than any text you could send. And I'm going to show you exactly why. Because what happens when you go silent changes everything. Here's what happens when you go silent, and why it works. Most men try to text their way into attraction. They think the right words, the perfect timing, the clever message will make her interested again. So they keep texting. They keep reaching out. They keep trying to maintain the connection through constant communication. But here's the truth from someone who understands female psychology. Every text you send when she's pulling away is lowering your value in her eyes. Not because you're saying the wrong things, but because the act of chasing through text communicates something deeper. It says you need her validation. It says you're reacting to her energy instead of controlling your own. Your silence, on the other hand, communicates strength. It communicates boundaries. It communicates that you have a life beyond waiting for her replies. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 6 principles that explain why your silence is more powerful than any text. You'll understand the psychology behind what happens in her mind when you stop reaching out. You'll learn exactly when to pull back, how to respond when she eventually texts first, and most importantly, the mindset shift that makes all of this natural, instead of strategic. By the end, you won't be the guy staring at his phone anymore. You'll be the man who controls the frame. So let's start with why your instinct to text is actually making things worse. 1. Why your instinct to text is actually making things worse. Let's talk about what's really happening in your mind when you feel the urge to text her. You notice she didn't reply to your last message. Hours pass. Then your mind starts racing. Did I say something wrong? Is she losing interest? Did she meet someone else? That uncertainty creates anxiety, and that anxiety drives you to send another text. Just checking in. Hope you're doing well. Saw this and thought of you. You think you're maintaining the connection, but here's what you don't realize. Every time you text from a place of anxiety, you're communicating something much deeper than your words. You're saying, I need confirmation that you still care about me. I need you to validate my worth. I'm incomplete without your response. And women pick up on this. They might not articulate it consciously, but they feel it. The energy behind your messages matters more than the message itself. Here's the psychology. Constant availability signals low value. When something is always available, always accessible, always there whenever you want it, the human brain stops valuing it. This is basic scarcity versus abundance thinking. We value what's rare, what's limited, what requires effort to obtain. When you're always the one texting first, always the one checking in, always making sure the conversation doesn't die, you become the abundant resource. You're communicating that your time, your attention, your energy is freely available to her at any moment. And psychologically, that makes you less valuable in her eyes. Think about the last checking in text you sent. The one that seemed innocent, friendly, just staying connected. What was really behind it? If you're honest, it was probably anxiety. It was probably the fear that if you didn't reach out, she'd forget about you. That's the validation-seeking trap. You're not texting because you have something valuable to share. You're texting because you need reassurance that you still matter to her. And that's the instinct that's making everything worse. If you're still watching, you're already ahead of most men who keep making this same mistake. So if constant texting signals low value, what does silence communicate instead? This is where it gets powerful. 2. What silence actually communicates, and why it's so powerful. Here's what your silence says without you having to say a single word. It says, I have self-control. I don't need constant validation. I have boundaries around my time and energy. I'm not sitting around waiting for you to respond because I have a life that's valuable and full without you. Compare that to what constant texting communicates. I need you to confirm I matter. I'm anxious about where I stand. I don't have enough going on in my life, so I'm focused on you. I'll chase you even when you're not reciprocating the energy. The contrast is massive, and women feel this contrast, even if they can't explain it in words. When you suddenly stop reaching out, something shifts in how she perceives you. Before, you were the predictable one, the one who always texted first, the one who kept the conversation alive. She got used to your attention. She took it for granted because it was always there. But when you go silent, that familiarity gets disrupted. She's used to seeing your name on her phone. She's used to your energy being directed toward her. And when that suddenly stops, it creates a vacuum. That absence forces her to notice what's missing. Here's the psychology that makes this so powerful. People don't value what they have. They value what they're losing or what they can't have. When your attention was constant, it didn't mean anything special. But when your attention disappears, it becomes scarce. And scarcity creates value. Think about it like this. When someone is always available to you, always saying yes, always making time for you no matter what, how much do you think about them? Probably not much. They're just there. Background noise in your life. But when someone who was always there suddenly isn't, when they stop being available, stop responding immediately, stop making you their priority, what happens? You start thinking about them. You start wondering where they went. You start questioning why the dynamic changed. That's the vacuum effect. When you remove your presence, she fills that empty space with thoughts of you. Not because she misses you in some romantic way at first, but because her brain is trying to solve the puzzle. Why did he stop texting? Did I do something wrong? Is he talking to someone else? Where did his attention go? And that shift from he's always there to where did he go is where the power reversal happens. Now, here's what really happens in her mind. When you suddenly go silent, this is the psychological shift most men never understand. 3. The psychological shift that happens when you stop texting. Here's what's going on inside her mind. When you suddenly go silent, she's used to you being there, used to your energy coming toward her, used to your attention being focused on her. That's her comfort zone. That's the baseline she's established in her mind about who you are and what you do. But when you stop texting, that comfort zone gets disrupted. And the first thing that happens isn't some romantic realization that she misses you. The first thing that happens is her ego takes a hit. See, when a man who is always reaching out suddenly stops, her brain doesn't immediately think, "Oh, I must have lost a good man." Her brain thinks, "Wait, why isn't he chasing me anymore? What changed?" And that question is rooted in ego, not emotion. It's about her perception of her own value. If you were pursuing her, and now you're not, her ego has to make sense of that shift. So she starts questioning herself. Did I do something wrong? Is he upset with me? Did he lose interest? And here's what most men don't realize. When you were texting constantly, she never had to ask these questions. She never had to think about you this much. But your absence forces her to think about you. That's the vacuum effect we talked about earlier, playing out in real time. Now let's break down what typically happens over a few days. Day 1, she might not even notice. She's used to you texting first, so she assumes you will. But by the end of day 1 or into day 2, she realizes you haven't reached out. At first, she might tell herself she doesn't care. She might even feel a little relieved, like she has space to breathe. But day 2 shifts. The silence starts to feel different. She checks her phone more often. She wonders if you're mad at her, if she said something that pushed you away. She might even look at your social media to see if you've posted anything, trying to figure out what you're up to. And if she sees that you're living your life, not sitting around waiting for her, that disrupts her assumptions even more. By day 3, the power dynamic has completely reversed. She's the one checking her phone. She's the one wondering where you went. She's the one thinking about you, while you're focused on your own life. That's when she goes from taking your attention for granted to realizing it's no longer guaranteed. And that shift, that realization that you might actually be done, that's what creates the urgency in her mind. You've learned why silence works and what happens in her mind. Understanding this shift is one thing, but here's how to actually use it strategically, without being petty or playing games. 4. How to implement strategic silence without being petty. Let's talk about when and how to actually do this. First, you need to understand the difference between pulling back and walking away completely. Pulling back is strategic. It's when you create space, because her energy is low, her respect is slipping, or she's taking you for granted. Walking away completely is when you've made the decision that this dynamic isn't worth your time anymore. Know which one you're doing and why. For strategic silence, here's the framework. When you notice her energy dropping, when her texts become short and infrequent, when she cancels plans or treats your time like it's not valuable, that's when you pull back. Don't announce it. Don't send a message saying, "I'm going to give you space." Just stop reaching out. Let 48 to 72 hours pass without any contact from your side. That's the window where the psychological shift happens. Now, here's what you do during that silence. You focus on yourself, not on her. You don't sit around wondering what she's doing. You don't check her social media every hour. You don't post things designed to get her attention. That's reactive behavior, and it defeats the entire purpose. The power of your silence comes from the fact that you're genuinely focused on your own life. You're at the gym. You're working on your goals. You're spending time with friends. You're living like a man who has value and purpose beyond one woman's attention. This is not about punishment. It's not about making her feel bad or trying to hurt her feelings. That's petty, and it reeks of emotional immaturity. Strategic silence is about boundaries. It's about saying, through your actions, that your time and energy are valuable, and you're not going to give them freely to someone who doesn't reciprocate that respect. Here's a concrete example. Let's say you've been texting back and forth for a few weeks. You make plans. She cancels last minute with a vague excuse. You notice her replies are getting shorter. She takes hours to respond, but you see she's posting on social media. That's disrespectful behavior. That's low investment. In that situation, you don't call her out. You don't argue. You simply stop texting. You let the silence do the work. You focus on your life, and you let her wonder why you're not chasing anymore. Now, here's the moment most men mess up. She eventually texts first, and your response determines everything. 5. How to respond when she texts first. The frame test. When she finally breaks the silence and texts you, this is the moment that reveals everything. It's a test of whether you've actually changed or if you're just playing a game. And here's what most men do wrong. They get excited. They see her name on their phone, and they immediately respond with a long message, trying to restart the conversation, trying to explain where they've been, trying to make up for the silence. That's the exact opposite of what you should do. Here's the principle. Don't rush to reward her for breaking the silence. Your attention is the reward, and she just spent days without it. If you immediately give her everything she wants, you're telling her that the silence meant nothing. You're showing her that you were just waiting for her to reach out, which puts you right back in the chasing position. Instead, match her energy. If she sends a short, casual text, you send a short, casual response. You don't exceed her investment. You don't give more than she's giving. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about maintaining the standard you set when you went silent. Your time and attention are valuable. She's going to have to earn them back, not just with one text, but with consistent respect and effort. Let me give you some examples. If she texts something like, "Hey, how have you been?" An ineffective response would be, "Hey, I've been great. Actually, I was just thinking about you. How are you? What have you been up to?" That response is too eager. It's giving too much. It's rewarding low effort with high effort. An effective response would be, "Good. Busy with work. You." That's it. Short. Calm. It answers her question without giving her a full update on your life. It doesn't chase the conversation. It puts the ball back in her court without showing that you're emotionally invested in her response. Here's another example. If she texts, "I feel like we haven't talked in a while," an ineffective response would be, "I know. I'm sorry. I've just been really busy. I didn't mean to go silent on you." That's apologizing for having boundaries. That's justifying your silence, which lowers your value. An effective response would be, "Yeah, life's been full. How's everything with you?" No apology. No explanation. Just a calm acknowledgement and a question that keeps the frame in your control. Now, here's the key. Don't respond immediately. Even if you see her text right away, wait. Give it a few hours. If it's late at night, wait until the next day. You're not playing hard to get, you're living your life, and responding to her text isn't your top priority. That's the frame you maintain. But here's the real difference between men who win and men who keep losing. It's not about tactics. It's about mindset. 6. The mindset shift that makes silence natural. You can learn every tactic in the world, but if your mindset is still rooted in seeking validation, none of it will work. Because the power of silence doesn't come from the strategy. It comes from genuinely not needing the outcome. When you're silent because you're busy building a life that's valuable, that silence is authentic. When you're silent because you're playing a game and waiting for her to chase, that silence is manipulation. And women can feel the difference. So here's the mindset shift. Stop treating your attention like it's worthless. Stop giving it away freely to anyone who shows you a little interest. Your time, your energy, your focus, these are the most valuable things you have. And right now, you're probably giving them to people who don't respect them. Treat your attention like currency. Make people earn it. Not through games, but through consistent respect, effort, and reciprocity. Here's the second shift. Outcome independence. You need to reach a point where you're genuinely okay with either outcome. If she comes back, great. If she doesn't, you're still fine. That's not fake confidence. That's not pretending you don't care. That's real internal security that comes from knowing your value doesn't depend on one woman's opinion of you. When you reach that place, your silence becomes effortless. You're not strategically waiting 72 hours. You're just living your life, and she's not at the center of it. And that brings us to the third shift. Abundance mindset. She's not your only option. You need to internalize that, not as a way to play games, but as a truth that frees you from desperation. When you believe there are other women out there who would value your time and energy, you stop clinging to the ones who don't. You stop chasing. You stop over-texting. You stop making excuses for disrespect. Because you know you have other options. And even if you don't have them right now, you're building toward them. Here's what this looks like in practice. A man with this mindset doesn't need to remember the 48 to 72-hour rule. He's not checking the clock. He's genuinely busy. He's at the gym. He's working on his goals. He's spending time with people who respect him. When she texts, he responds when it fits into his life. Not as a strategy, but because that's how he operates. He doesn't sit around analyzing her replies. He doesn't panic when she goes quiet. He just keeps moving forward, building his life, with or without her. That's the man women respect. That's the man who doesn't get taken for granted. Not because he's playing tactics, but because he's become someone whose attention is actually worth earning. You've made it this far because you're serious about this shift. So here's what you need to remember about all of this. Your silence is more powerful than any text you could send, because it communicates everything words can't. It communicates self-control, boundaries, and value. It forces her to think about you instead of taking you for granted. And it shifts the power dynamic from you chasing to her wondering where you went. But here's the truth most men need to hear. You can't text your way into attraction. You can't convince someone to value you through words. Attraction comes from how you carry yourself, how you respect your own time, and whether you're willing to walk away when someone doesn't match your energy. So here's what you do right now. Put the phone down. Stop analyzing her last text. Stop wondering if you should reach out. Focus on building a life that's valuable enough that your attention becomes scarce. Hit the gym. Work on your goals. Spend time with people who respect you. Live like a man who has options, even if you're working toward them. And if you implement this correctly, if you genuinely shift your mindset and not just play tactics, the dynamic will change. She'll notice your absence. She'll start reaching out. And when she does, you'll respond from a place of strength, not desperation. That's the difference. That's how you win. You don't chase. You don't beg for attention. You build yourself into the kind of man whose silence speaks louder than words ever could. I want to hear from you. Have you used silence with a woman and seen her behavior change? What happened? Drop your story in the comments. I'll be reading every one because these real-world examples help all of us understand the psychology better. That's how you win. That's the man women respect. Be that man.